live. All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. It is time for some Clubhouse chatter. And producer Brian is at school today, so I'm flying solo. And my first guest of the morning is the one and only Mets superfan, Jim Breuer. Jim, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. Feeling good.
Good.
Ready for the season to start.
Oh, man, I'm excited. You know, I haven't been this excited for a baseball season. Well, last year I was pretty excited, but things are changing. You got the Mets up at the top. You got the Cubs at the top. The Royals are still playing well. And, you know, it's not all about the Yankee, Red Sox, Dodgers, and so on anymore.
No, I love the way the Diamondbacks look. I love what the Cubs look like. I love that the Cubs are in the mix of it all. I mean, even the Astros.
Oh, I know.
Who'd see the Astros coming?
Well, you know, I saw the Astros coming a couple of years ago because of the fact that, I mean, they're doing it the same way the Kansas City Royals did, by being lousy all those years and obtaining those number one draft picks and just keeping them for the most part. And, you know, that's what the Royals did, you know, Hosmer and Moustakas and all those guys. And the Astros, you know, they've gotten rid of a couple of guys, but they're pretty much doing it the same way.
Yeah, the Mets are too. I was down at the fantasy camp, and they got this first baseman too that they have in the wings. That some people are saying this kid not only was gloved as a Gold Glover, but he looks like the next Tony Gwynn to be coming up in the wings. And boy, if that's true, between Conforto and him and this young staff, you may have a very dangerous Mets for the next couple of years.
So, of course, Conforto, being an Oregon State guy, not too far from where I'm at, you know, and it's really hard not to pull for a guy like that. You know, the Mets are doing it right. You know, with Terry Collins, you've got a hell of a manager. He's a player's manager. He knows when to pull the strings and whatnot. And what's not to love about that pitching staff?
That is, I say, is the four horsemen in baseball. And
it is.
There's a fifth one galloping in the distance, waiting to join the force. And that's if they're healthy, and if they took anything from what the Royals did 2 years ago and even last year, which I'm going to say they did. I think the best thing that can happen to the Mets this year is the fact that they start off opening day in Kansas City. They watch that flag get raised. They watch those rings get handed out. And they got to stand there and eat it and take it and know that, you know what, this is not going to this shouldn't happen again. It's our turn to grab this. And I hope they get that fire in their belly. I think they will. And they come out swinging from day one.
Did you see where I was watching MLB Network and they were talking about the first 2 days they're in Kansas City, opening day, that the Royals are going to stretch out the celebration now over 2 days?
I did not see that, but I will be there. I'm actually performing in Kansas City the day after opening day. I'm playing in Kansas City at some casino called the Voodoo Lounge, so I'm going to be out there for that whole madness. I'm pretty excited about that, too.
How many games do you get? Are you a season ticket holder?
No. I'm about an hour, 15, hour, 20 minutes away with no traffic heading to Citi Field where I live. So, plus I have 3 kids. I tour. I'm married. I don't have time to hit every game. So I watch it on my phone when I'm on the road. We watch it together a lot at the house. And I got to go to about probably 7-8 games last year, and I got to go to every single playoff game.
Oh, nice. So now you are, I mean, besides being a comedian, you are famous for your videos that you post of watching the Met games at home.
Right.
And when did all that start? They are hilarious, and I try to catch them. You know, every time you post, I try to catch them.
Well, the whole thing started with sometime last year. I want to say around February. I started making videos, just online Facebook videos, and the social media manager, like, you really should make Facebook videos every day to relate to your fans. Well, I didn't want to do it. I don't want to do it for the sake of doing it, and no passion. And then when I started doing family stuff, I had a little more passion, and it was kind of fun. And then came opening game, the Mets and the Washington Nationals, and it was Bartola Colon versus Scherzer, and I just remember, and it was also a tough time in our house, and this is why the season turned out so great, and the videos turned out so great. My wife was battling cancer. She was going through chemo, and she was back from chemo, one of her sessions that day, and she could barely lift her head, and she's watching me go bonkers watching the Mets games, like I always do, and she's got this little smile on her face, and she's got barely enough energy to giggle. I said, what's so funny? What are you giggling about? It was the ninth inning. We were about to beat the Mets. Bartola outpitched them. And she goes, this is what you should be making videos of as a true blue Mets fan. She goes, but don't hold back. You be a full-blown fan. And I went, oh, my God, that's freaking genius. And I made the first one. I had no clue it would pick up momentum, and it was on the Mets page picked it up, and then I kept doing more and more, and people said, you need to tag this person. I never did the tagging, and I still don't understand tagging. So everything was viral, and then I had no clue. She said, you got to do every game. Oh, every game? She goes, yeah, do every game. You're nuts. You got to, just the way you have passion for baseball. And I ended up doing every single game. A lot of people didn't catch on to it was the playoffs, and they thought I just jumped up. But from day one I started. And how was I supposed to know they were going to win 11 in a row? It was magical for them. It was magical for me. And I think the coolest thing in the world was to have fans come to me, and they still do. They're buying tickets to shows, and they say, you made that season so you made it that much magical. There's nothing more fun than waiting for the end of the game and just waiting for you to put your video up. And it was I try to keep a positive note no matter what. And I even was positive with all the other teams, because I love and I respect baseball. I still say it's the greatest sport that still exists.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I coached high school and middle school football for 20 years, and I've always loved baseball. I grew up in Idaho, and so WTBS at the time was the only thing we got. And so watching the Atlanta Braves, I grew up a Braves fan, and I absolutely hated the Mets. But over the years, I became, I'm more of a baseball fan now that I've worked in minor leagues and stuff like that. I became a baseball fan. And I root for players more than I do teams. I mean, I'm a Giants fan because I've worked for the Giants and so on. But I just love baseball. I love seeing what the Mets are doing, and, of course, the Cubs. And, baseball right now is in a pretty doggone good place. You got a bunch of young talent, and it's not just the Yankees. It's the teams with money that are taking all the talent anymore. And so...
Right. And I think it's almost like Tampa started this whole madness. Tampa Bay, the Rays were horrible for years and years. And then you had Madden and what those guys did, and then all of a sudden they were in the playoffs every year. Yep. Or they were winning the pennant every year. And you're going, who are these guys? Where'd they come from? They got no payroll, zero payroll. And I guess even before that, back to the Moneyball with the A's. The A's, for quite a while, seemed to be in it too, with, again, no payroll. And so it was I think baseball's at a great... even as a diehard Mets fan, I really enjoyed that Royals team.
Yeah.
They go, are you over it? And I went, I was over it. I wasn't heartbroken. I gotta, would I like to see them win? Yeah, but I enjoyed watching the Royals win. What a great baseball team. I don't think, with the exception of their first home run that huge home run in Game 1 with 2 outs with 1 out in the ninth. You take away that home run, I don't think there was another home run they hit.
Right.
So they just scratched and clawed and scratched, and I loved watching that Royals team. I really did.
You know, they played baseball, so you're probably around the same. I'm 48, so you're probably around the same age, I'm guessing. And so, you know, they played baseball like what we used to watch as kids. You know, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't have the 50 home run guys or the 60 home run guys. You know, Dale Murphy was winning home run titles with 30 and 36, 37 home runs, as was Mike Schmidt and all the other guys.
Lazinski.
Yeah.
Lazinski, Willie Stargell. Those guys were hitting. If they hit 38, you're like, whoa, he hit 38 this year. The average big slugger was between 32 and 35 home runs.
Yep.
You start hitting 38, then you're looking at Hank Aaron, Mike Schmidt, Willie Stargell, McCovey. Those were the big boys, and so it was really nice. Listen, I get the steroid era, and they needed whatever happened, but it's really good to see baseball getting back to a kid that can throw 99, 100, and you can't hit him.
Right.
And you have great pitching and unreal defense, and your second baseman doesn't have to hit 350 with 30 homers. If that's 250, 270, that's what he should be doing. So I agree. I like where it's at right now. It's getting back to the way it's supposed to be.
Where does your passion for baseball come from? Did you play as a kid growing up, and have you always followed the Mets?
I always thought I first started watching, I think it was 1973 is when I started watching baseball. I was 4 years old. And I remember watching the Yankees and the Mets. And I remember on the Yankees you had Mickey Rivers, Roy White, Chambliss, Gossage, Thurman Munson, but I don't know. I fell in love with the Mets. I fell in love with Jerry Grody, Wayne Garrett, and Matlack, and Kuzman, and Seaver. And they made the playoffs that year. And Buddy Harrelson, I loved Buddy Harrelson.
Yep.
So and then I started playing. I started playing baseball as a kid, and I played it all the way up into high school. And ever since high school, I've missed it so much. I just want to know if I could still hit a ball, if I could still field it, and this is why this year I finally got to do the fantasy camp. And I tell you, if you got any listeners, you just love baseball and you want to play baseball, and you don't have to be a great ball player. I mean, there's people 60 years old playing this game. No one's hurling the ball at 70, 80 miles an hour. Most of it is 50 miles an hour. And your team does a fantasy camp, I highly suggest doing it. It was one of the best weeks I ever had in my life. I loved it, and I can't wait to do it again.
And that was your first one?
Yeah, I'd never done it before. I thought fantasy camp was, you meet the old ball players, you take some batting practice, and you get autographs and take pictures.
Oh no.
Yeah, right. I had no clue that you're playing games against each other in a tournament for a week, and the players are the coaches. And the hurt, oh my God, was I aching by the end of the week. And you feel like a ball player. You show up, you got your locker is right next to a Met that you grew up with, or whatever ball player you grew up with. They're hanging out, they talk to you, they got a training room, you get hurt, the trainers are waiting for you. It's there's banquets every night. I don't know about others, but I do hear the Mets. There's one guy that was next to me. He went to the Cubs, the Red Sox, the Yankees. I want to say the Cardinals, too. And he said the Mets one was the best one because of the nighttime stuff. The nighttime stuff was the funniest and most entertaining, and they really treat you well. I went, oh, cool. Okay.
Well, the Mets, from what I know, and I know Tom Gamboa, who manages the Brooklyn Cyclones in the Mets organization, and so of course, chatting with Lenny Randle, who is the most interesting man in baseball, and Duffy Dyer, I look back as a kid all those years to where I hated the Mets, and I kind of feel guilty because it's actually a very respectable organization, and there's quality guys, and this is the way it is with all the organizations,
Sure.
And so, but man, I kind of feel like I missed out on some of those old Mets teams, growing up in Kimberly, Idaho, watching the Braves, and man, the Braves were terrible back then.
Yeah, I was gonna say you like the Braves when they were bad news. They were terrible. You had Bob Horner, right?
Yeah.
Big Bob Horner on third base, and you didn't have much after that.
Dale Murphy, and that was pretty much it. Yep.
That was it. That was your Braves until those '90 Braves came along.
I think there was a couple of seasons back in probably early '80s to where they lost there was 2 or 3 years where they lost 100 games in a row. And
that was a lot like the late '70s Mets, and
right.
That's another. I stuck with that whole team, and I loved John Stearns.
Yep.
And here he is running the whole Mets camp. I showed up like, oh my God, it's Johnny Stearns. I stood in line for 2 hours to see you when I was 8 years old. It's pretty cool.
So as a fan, so my first when I went to work in minor league baseball back in 2006, I was clubhouse manager for the Lancaster Jethawks in Lancaster, California. Brett Butler was our manager. And I remember the very first time Brett called me on the phone. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I used to watch you. I am a huge, huge fan. And he was just like, shut up. He goes, here are the rules. Here are my rules. Rule number 1, you treat me like I'm any other guy.
Right.
And he was such a class act.
Yeah.
And
that's, yeah.
And do you find that too?
Well, not only do I find it a class act, but what you'll find, if you go in these fantasy camps, I was next to Turk Wendell, and right behind me was Dwight Gooden. And Turk Wendell, I thought this was the funniest thing, because as a fan, you grow up, and I remember watching Turk Wendell, and I know he played on Chicago Cubs. He was traded to the Phillies for a while.
Played with the Braves.
When he was on the Mets, when he was on the Mets, he had, I guess for his whole career, he had the sharp teeth around his neck.
Yep.
And before he pitched, he would come into the game, and he'd do a wind-up with his arm, and he would look in the outfield. He kind of gives a stare towards the outfield. And so I kind of forgot about it. And so here I am at the locker next to him, and one of the campers come up and they're like, Turk, can I ask you something? He's like, yeah, what's up? He goes, okay, every time you would come in the game, you would do this thing with your arm, and then you'd give this weird stare in the outfield. It brought back memories. I'm like, oh, yeah, what was that all about? And he goes, what was that? Was it some kind of ritual? And he goes, no, I was just warming my arm up, and I was making sure the outfield was ready. What? That's all it was? He goes, when I was in the minors once, I'm a fast pitcher. He goes, I work very fast. I don't like taking my time. And I struck a guy out, and when I got in the dugout, the center fielder said, whoa, you got to check to make sure the outfield's ready, because I didn't even know you were pitching until it was strike 3. Don't do that again. He goes, so every game I came in, I'd warm up my arm, and while I was doing that, just made sure everyone in the field was ready. I know that sounds, simple, but it's just so funny when you as a fan think this whole big thing is going on, and then you turn and you ask the guy, he's like, no, I'm just checking to make sure people are ready. There was no weird ritual or mysterious thing going on.
Turk's an interesting guy, so he brushed his teeth in between every innings. And and the rumor was that he was waving to the outfielder because in high school his best friend was either like the center fielder or right fielder, and he would wave to him all the time. And so that was the rumor that was going on with that I remember. And so, yeah. So who else was there at fantasy camp?
Dwight Gooden was there. He made me laugh so hard just as a father. We were talking just as fathers and how the kids really don't know much of what we do. Now, you have Dwight Gooden, and he's telling me this story. And I said, Dwight, you don't understand. When, as a kid, 18 years old, 19, waiting for you to pitch was like waiting for a Tyson fight. And I can honestly say, and I don't mean this just as a Met fan, I think I can honestly say I don't remember baseball getting so excited, with the exception maybe Strasburg when he came up.
Mm-hmm.
But baseball, the entire league, maybe Fernando Valenzuela, where people gathered around just to watch this guy pitch. He was lights out. And he, he's very humble, but he goes, yeah, well, try to explain that to my kids. He goes, my 10-year-old is playing Little League now, and he only sees me when I'm playing old timers games at Yankee Stadium. So, I'm watching him pitch, and I can't help it. I'm watching his mechanics, and I go, son, come here. I go, you gotta lift your leg up more. And he looks at me and goes, Dad, what do you know about pitching? He goes, well, your daddy used to pitch. He goes, you mean with the old farts at Yankee Stadium? Is that what you're talking about? He goes, no. Daddy used to pitch. So now his kid's pitching in a game, right? And the kid, his mechanics are a little off. And again, he goes, I can't help it. I go, son, come here. Just listen. You're standing on the wrong side of the rubber. And you want to kick your leg like this and throw your arm like this. And Dwight Gooden's son goes, Dad, the coach told me how to throw the ball. I think the coach knows a little more than you will.
And that's funny because that is a common theme, especially with, the older players from our generation that played in the 80s and stuff. I know Brett Butler told me, same story with his son. But yeah, it's the coach always know more because they didn't see him play, like in the 80s and whatnot. They weren't around. And so pretty much all there is just video of them now, and it sounds like, a lot of players, don't even show, and that shows how humble they are, that they don't go back and say, hey, take a look at me, what I used to do.
Yes, so humble. And that's what I loved about it too. I'm telling you, even if you're not a great baseball player, it is worth buy them the present of a lifetime. Send it to a camp. God, it's still a good time if you're into baseball.
I don't know which camp I would really want to go to. I mean, there's so many great.
I would do the Red Sox.
Oh,
I wouldn't mind trying a Red Sox one. I wouldn't mind trying. You know what's cool too? They have a Q&A, right? The Mets had a Q&A.
Right.
And I stood up. Everyone's asking them all these questions that were boring me to death. And, should you have kept Harvey? And all these questions they don't really care. So I said, I got a question for you. And you had guys from the 70s, from Felix Mian to all the way up until the 80s and even 90s. And I said, who out of everyone you faced in your life, whether you're a pitcher, who's the one batter you couldn't stand to face? And if you're a batter, who did you fear the most? And almost every batter from the 70s, 60s generation, Bob Gibson, they were like, I didn't get to watch Bob Gibson. They all said, oh, my God, Bob Gibson. We were petrified of Bob Gibson. And then I think the hitting wise was kind of all over the place. The hitting, there was like very obscure hitters. Like, what? Every guy had a different name. But that's a cool thing, too. You get to see who did you fear? It's just like Little League. You get on the mat and you go, oh, God, this guy's coming up. What am I going to do with this guy?
There's always that one kid. Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't change once they're in the majors.
Yep.
it was kind of cool because Turk Wendell was telling me, he goes, and we know it. If I'm a pitcher and that batter comes up and I can tell he's a little scared, I own him. I just own him. And they can tell the same with you. Batters can tell when you're a little rattled and you're a little scared of them. They know.
So what was your absolute favorite thing about the Mets fantasy camp?
I'll give you two things. One was my first at bat when I got the first time I got a hit. My first real good, clean shot to the outfield. That just felt so good. Getting the wood on the ball, the crack, and then the other thing was when I was a kid, I was kind of afraid of the ball. So once I hit, I played first base. So when the ball was in the dirt, very rarely would I be able to scoop it up. I turned my head. If it was in the ground, that was it. It's getting by me. I was petrified of the ball. And I remember Steve Gimello, as a kid, I went to high school. He'd throw the ball, and he'd curse. And the ball go on the ground. He'd go, this and that, darn it, Breuer's going to miss. And it would go by me, and it would just rock my confidence, and I felt horrible. And the coolest thing, as I got older, I would say, man, I wish I had that chance to get back in the box and face a fastball, because now I don't fear the ball. And I wish I could play first base to see if I could scoop the ball because I don't fear it anymore. And I got to do both. There was a tough play. It was a double play. The guy threw to second. The second baseman threw it to me. It was in the dirt. Didn't hesitate. Boom, scooped it up in an inning-ending double play. And I felt, to me, that was the World Series Game 7. That's one of those moments that keep going in your head. And those, I got to say, for me, it was actually playing. Playing the baseball for me was my favorite part.
Right. Now, when you go to a fantasy camp, I know they don't come cheap, but do you actually get to keep the uniform and the bat that you use?
Oh yeah. You keep everything. They give you away uniforms, home uniforms with your name. They give you presents every single day. There's always a bunch of stuff that every day you come to your locker. It's like, oh wow, this is kind of cool.
How cool is that?
Oh, it's very, very cool. And they watch your stuff. But yeah, you get to keep everything. They give you a bag, you bring it all home. The only thing you bring is your own cleats and your own bat if you would like to.
Right.
But they supply the bats, and I ended up using all their bats.
I think it'd be cool because you get to see these different players that have played for the Mets at somewhere in their career, and you see them in a different light, and it is so different from watching them on TV into hanging out with them in real life. It puts a human element on it. You get to know them a little bit, and the guys become real.
Yeah, and I've learned that just from stand-up comedy and meeting actors and rock stars and stuff like that, and I get to see the other side to them and meet their families, and you see that as well. I think ball players, I catch myself a little bit more, try not to geek out with the current teams, where when you see these guys and you realize they're talking about their wife and their kids and their life and their grandmother and this and that, yeah, they're all human, which also I kept in perspective when I made the videos. Like, I never trashed anyone. I think what kept the videos alive too was I would even hit home stuff. There was a stretch where Familia on the Mets right after the All-Star break, so the first time all season, blew 2 or 3 games in a row. He didn't blow one game, and all of a sudden, right after the All-Star game, he blew 2, 3 games.
Right.
And I'll give you a great, for instance. I'm getting off track, but I also remember he just had a baby. He just had his first child. So I remember the video was to the point where I was like, don't get on his nerves. He's had, his wife is his wife is here. His kid's getting up all night. His wife's yelling at him because he wants Terry Collins not to have him at the meetings. But I just made it's very humbling and just like your own household. And the response I got with that, and I ended up seeing him like months later, and even he said, "Oh my God, that was so right on point." I went, awesome. But I was going to say, I learned that about, I'm going to say it was early 2000s. I won't say the name of the player, but you probably guess it. He was sent to the Yankees, and it was kind of a big deal. And when he came to the Yankees, he had a very hard time because he wasn't used to so much press.
Right.
And the press is following him around, and he's not a guy that can just walk down the street and blend in with people. So I do remember this. I remember visiting him, and his family was very unhappy. And they were unhappy because they couldn't play ball with Dad. They couldn't just walk down the street. They couldn't enjoy their lives. They didn't have a yard. He got mobbed everywhere he went. And I remember his wife and family going, "You know what? If you make it to the playoffs, I don't care. We're going back to where we came from, and if it takes a month to see you, so be it. That's what we're doing." And he was really bothered by the whole family situation. And that year, he had a lot of quote injuries, and I knew it was a lot more mental than
Right.
the eye can see. And there's little stuff like that, like you don't realize is going on in a ball player's life. You just think, "Oh, he's hurt," or you don't know if it's emotional what's going on. You don't know what's going on in the house. You just don't know. They're human. So they have real lives going on. And you just don't know what's going on that can affect them on the field.
I remember back in 2006, so the Arizona Diamondbacks, Jethawks were minor league team of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks employed basically a shrink. And so we would see him in Lancaster a couple times, because the ball flies out of Jethawk Stadium. And so, if you're a pitcher, you're going to have an ERA. I think our team ERA for the season was like 5.74. But we scored a billion runs and hit a billion home runs and whatnot. But, the pitchers had just really played with their psyche because of the fact that, they were going to get lit up. And,
right.
Absolutely. And it does. It affects your, your home life, and it affects, what goes on in the clubhouse. I met Barry Bonds, and, you hear of all these stories about Barry Bonds being just an ass. But the time I met Barry, man, he was very cordial to me. He wasn't at all. He was just a down-to-earth guy, But
and like you said, you don't know. Even during that whole, he took the rap for the steroid era. And I see his perspective as well as everyone else. Everyone else is doing it. Why does he have to be the fall guy and be the big bad guy? And that was also I got it. I totally got it. I never hated him or never hated any of those guys. Okay, just that's what the time was, what was going on. So.
Bottom line is Major League Baseball allowed it to happen. And so, and you go back to being a 19, 20-year-old kid and playing baseball, and you got that sitting in front of you saying, okay, you take this, you're going to be a career major leaguer, you're going to earn millions and millions of dollars, and if you don't take this, you're going to be working at Home Depot for 10 years. What are you going to do? I'm going to take it.
Right. Well, not only that, it came from all the way to the top. It came from the highest of the highest. It went, everyone and their mother knew exactly what was going on. It's almost like a mobster ring thing. If one guy goes down and sticks his neck and says what's going on, well, now everyone's got to turn their back on him because potentially the whole ring could go down. And at that time, it was the whole ring from commissioner on. Even the commissioner, I don't care what you say, UFC League, he was just as part of the whole thing as everyone else was. So
absolutely.
That's why it made it tricky to prosecute people and all that. And everyone was in bad trouble. Everybody, agents, owners, everybody, coaches, you name it, they were involved.
So I know it's a little bit early. Spring training has yet to start, but can we get? It's gonna be kind of hard to ask you for a prediction for the Mets this year, but I see the Mets. Of course, the Nationals are going to be tough, but I see the Mets winning the National League East again this year.
I have to say I do too, but we all know baseball. We got to see how everyone plays.
Yep.
Will the Mets have that? If the Mets have that fire in their belly, they're going to be very difficult to beat this year. You have Walker, who is a great fielder, a great ball player, great clubhouse guy, who's a switch hitter, and it's his contract year.
Yep.
You have Cespedes, who's a big bopper. He's just, you don't know what he's going to do. He almost reminds me of Vladimir Guerrero.
He does.
Swinging a ball 10 feet out of the plate, and he's driving it into the gap. He's a savage. What does Conforto do? Does Conforto have a breakout year? Does he become a 280, 20 home run, 22 home run guy? If he does, the Mets are going to be a lot of problems. They got a bench. Last year they didn't have a bench.
Right.
Last year they're dealing with their AAA team guys that should have been playing baseball. Well, now if David Wright goes down, you still got a lineup. You still got Duder in there and Travis d'Arnaud and Walker and Cespedes and Granderson. You're still okay. But the most important thing is their pitching and now their relief pitching is pretty stacked. So on paper, I have to say, right now, as a Met, I don't fear anyone in the National League. Absolutely nobody. However, that's all going to change come May, June. We don't know what the Cubs look like, the Diamondbacks look like, the Dodgers. We don't know. We have no clue who's going to get hurt. Stanton.
Yep.
Who knows? Stanton comes back, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. And then you got Gordon
he's a
down there
monster.
in Florida. Florida scares the living snot out of me when they're healthy. They're petrifying. They've just never been healthy. So right now I say, the Mets. But, and I'm not saying it as a fan, I'm just saying it as the way they stack up now compared to what they were last year, I think they're way better than they were last year.
Oh, I agree.
Way better. So I'd have to say the Mets, and right now they're going to be tough to beat. Even with the upgrades to the Cubs and all that, you still got to get by the four horsemen.
It's going to be a fun year. I mean, it's an even year. So here we are, even year, and we all know what happens in even years with the San Francisco Giants. So I'm excited about that. But
me too.
Holy crap, man! That National League West with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, man, that's going to be tough road to hoe right there.
I'm going to give the Diamondbacks the edge.
I'm telling you, they're looking good.
I'm going to give the Diamondbacks the edge. They got good hitting. They're, you don't know what kind of trades are going to be made. It was funny, before the Mets got Cespedes, I was praying they would make a trade for Carlos Gonzalez. I love that guy.
Cargo.
It didn't happen, but where's he going this year? Who's going to snag him? That scares me a little bit. I don't know where he's going to end up.
So Cargo was with me in Lancaster in 2006. So I spent a whole season with him. And I'll tell you what, that guy can flat out play ball. He always, the misconception on him was he made the game look so easy by the way he played that people tabbed him as lazy. And by no means that wasn't the case. And I saw Carlos, at the high A level, and I saw him. He worked his butt off. Great guy, great player. Still chat with him a little bit to this day. And where's he gonna go? And
he's one of my favorite players. I've watched him. I specifically watched him every time the Mets played him, and I loved watching that guy. I'm a huge fan of him. Huge fan of his. He's one of my favorites. So.
My Carlos Gonzalez story is July 4th, 2006. We were in Altadena, California, where the High Desert Mavericks play. And there was a smoke screen over the field from all the fireworks going off around us. And I remember I was in the dugout, and it was Rob Nepper, who was the trainer of the Jethawks, and Brett Butler, Damon Mayshore, and Jeff Pico. We're all just watching the game, and all of a sudden, you could see Carlos go back for a fly ball. And just out of the blue, he collapses at the wall. And it was like one of those double takes to where, you had to question, okay, did I just think what I just saw? And so I had to turn to Rob Nepper and Brett Butler, and the ball had bounced off of his head, and it did a Jose Canseco, went over the fence for a home run. And so... Wow. It was, and he was so embarrassed by it. He played with the glove over his face for the rest of the game, just with you could see the eyes peeking above the glove. But he handled it like a total pro. He came back the next day, and in the clubhouse, we had created a batting helmet with a bullseye on it, and he laughed it off, and he went out, and he tore up the league, and that's my Carlos Gonzalez story.
I love it, man. I love it.
It was.
Now I'm a bigger fan.
It was awesome. It really was. It was just something, one of those, Brett Butler is pacing in the dugout, in 17 years in the major leagues. He had never seen that, and he was telling us that. So,
bigger fan now. Thank you. Great story with Carlo.
So once again, Mr. Jim Breuer. Jim, hey, do you have any shows coming up?
Oh my God, yeah. I'm playing all over the place. I'm about to I'm off to Baltimore. That show's sold out. I got a couple sold-out shows in Long Island. And then I'm doing Kansas City for opening day of baseball. And I'm doing a spring training tour the first 2 weeks in March. I'm playing pretty much every spring training city down in Florida. Cala, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Orlando, Clearwater, Fort Myers. So you just go to the official JimBreuer.com for details and all that jazz. But I'm touring all year, and I got a rock record coming out at the end of May. And
nice.
I'll be touring that as well. And I shouldn't pre-say this until it's out there, but if you liked what I did with the videos last year, I'm going to expand on it tremendously this year, meaning I'm going to be involving a lot more fans. I'll just leave it as that, and you could become. I got something working with MLB,
right?
And if all turns out well, which I think it is, and it looks that way, there'll be a lot more little Jim Breuers out there representing their teams. And
nice.
It'll be a pretty cool, fun season.
Well, I'm excited. You were talking about how you. You kind of get all jittery, with the ball players and stuff like that. With me, it's not the ball player. The ball players, I've seen and done, but it's people like you who, have a passion for the game of baseball. And, when I was first chatting with Amy about bringing you on the show, honestly, I never thought it would happen. I'm just a little guy. I'm just a little guy in the game of baseball. I'm a lucky man, a blessed man. I get to host Clubhouse chatter. I do it because I love it. I don't get paid for this. This is a hobby of mine.
Sure.
And for people like you to take time out to talk to me, it means the world to me. And you are, you seem like such just, you're just a guy's guy. You're just one of the guys.
And I grew up that way, and I'm always going to stay that way. And I met them all. I met from the biggest rock stars, hung out with every politician you can imagine, actors, ball players, at the end of the day, we're just the same. We're just trying to get through it all. So there's no reason to stick our noses up above anyone else. You know, when I hear people say, well, this job is worth more than that, you're a star and you work hard and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, we're all just on borrowed time, baby. So let's just enjoy what we do and get by this madness while we can. And for us, it's baseball, baby. So
yes, sir.
For having me.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
Let's do this again. And if you're ever in the Portland area, you know, look me up, and hopefully we can meet face to face.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me, and all the best to you.
All right, Jim. Hey, thank you for coming on the show.
You got it. Take care.
All right. Once again, Mr. Jim Breuer on Clubhouse Chatter. So Jim was voted one of the Comedy Central's 100 greatest stand-up actors or stand-ups of all time. And so, funny man, has a lot of stuff going on. You know, JimBreuer.com, check him out. So I'm Norm. Brian is at school, so I'm filling in as producer Norm today, not only as show host Norm, but producer Norm. And I'm going to be back at 12:15 with Ray Chang. Ray Chang is a former San Diego Padre, played at Portland with the Portland Beavers, and played with Team China. And so the World Baseball Classic qualifying round begins here in a couple of days. And so we're going to have Ray come on and talk about playing for China, who isn't a national powerhouse in baseball. And so we'll chat with him a little bit. And so once again, I'm Norm. Brian, I'm holding down this fort. Hey, thanks for watching, and we'll be back.